Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
First, a clarification from some of the president's tweets over the weekend. The president doesn't really think that the FBI failed to stop the Parkland shooter because it was too involved with the Russia investigation, does he?
I think he was speaking not necessarily that is the cause. I think we all have to be aware that the cause of this is that of a deranged individual that made a decision to take the lives of 17 other people. That is the responsibility of the shooter. Certainly not the responsibility of anybody else.
So did he mistweet when he said that? 'Cause he's pretty direct. He says, this is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russia.
I think he's making the point that we would like our FBI agencies to not be focused on something that is clearly a hoax in terms of investigating the Trump campaign and its involvement.
Oh my God. She is the wall. She is absolutely the wall. Build that wall. Yeah, but I wish Mexico would pay her salary so we could rest our case here on this. Oh, that is unbelievable. So the president, as you know, tweeted out over the weekend that the reason that this shooter was able to complete his mission to slaughter his 17 people was because the FBI dropped the ball, right? Because the FBI spends too much time working on Russia. You know, for the very small amount of people that are helping Mueller in his independent counsel investigation into an investigation that's already produced 19 indictments, we're about to get another guilty plea. Well, we got a guilty plea today at 2:30 from a lawyer, no less, at Skadden Arps, which is a big multinational law firm, who apparently lied to the FBI to cover up something Manafort and Gates had written on behalf of their client, Viktor Yanukovych. This is very, very convoluted, this story, but we got another guilty plea. And then, you know, there's rumors that Rick Gates is going to plead guilty too. And of course, if Mueller is making these deals, it's because there's information to be had that will take him up the food chain. Like I said, this is a RICO violation, and the special counsel is investigating it as if it were a RICO act. I mean, just as if it were mob stuff, because it probably is. But that said, the president did tweet over the weekend that the FBI was too involved in Russia and not even, you know, the people. First of all, is the president so naive? Is he really just a sweet little country mouse that he doesn't understand that the people who would be involved in cyber security, or the people inside the FBI who would be involved in, translating, intercept, or anything like that, are a small number of people that are helping Mueller, and that the rest of that those people would never be involved in chasing down a lead on a Florida boy? Do they not? I don't. What is with this man? I mean, it's all deflection. It's all deflection. Everything about it is deflection. Everything about it is look over there. Don't look over here. Look over. I can't even stand it. This is like code red time, where you have a president who's so unhinged. You know, you say, well, you know, the FBI should have looked at his social media. First of all, I want to know, what would the FBI have done? What would the FBI have done? This kid violated 0 laws. That's number one. So even if the FBI was notified in Miami, which they weren't, and that's a mistake, but if the FBI had notified the Miami field office to go ahead and look into this kid who, you know, lives, 60 miles north of the FBI field office in Miami, I don't know. But even if they were told to go and do that, and they did do that, and they found that this kid was on the verge, what could they have done? See, he hadn't broken any laws yet. He was a legal gun owner right up until the point that he started murdering kids at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He was a legal gun owner. So this is a false flag on the part of the president, who's very good at doing this. It's another deflection. Blame the FBI, blame the Justice, but blame this one, blame that one. He's blameless. He's absolutely blameless. And this Russia thing, according to Sarah again today, oh, it's all a hoax. Everything about it is that is what she said right there. And then the press followed up and said, well, then what? Now that you've got this indictment about the social media aspect of it, and now that you've got this criminal indictment that clearly shows that what the Russians did on behalf of Donald Trump was clearly criminal. And you got all these meetings between the Trump kids and the Trump campaign, and you've got, the Trump Tower meeting, and you've got, Sessions having to recuse himself because he's meeting with Russians, and you got the firing of James Comey to obstruct the Russia. I mean, what is the president going to do now that we have this indictment? What is he prepared to do?
What is the president going to do about it? What is he specifically doing about the fact that Russia interfered with our election and has every intention, we are told, of doing it again? What is he doing about it?
Look, just last week, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen met with a number of relevant stakeholders. They're discussing this process and going through and looking every single day at the best ways forward. Everybody wants to blame this on the Trump administration. Let's not forget that this happened under the Obama administration.
A year ago, what's he done about it?
We have spent a lot of time working on cybersecurity, focusing on protecting the fairness on our elections. And as I just said, the Department of Homeland Security met with state and local officials just over the last several weeks, along with election vendors, to make sure that our election system is secure.
Oh, let me just interrupt Miss Sanders, Honey Boo Boo here, for a brief moment. The state and local officials spoke out about this stupid meeting that the Department of Homeland Security had with them and said that the Department of Homeland Security gave them absolutely nothing specific that they could look at or do in order to protect the elections. And therefore, many, many states are deciding to go with paper ballots in 2018, because they said that they attended one meeting that the Department of Homeland Security had for state and local officials, and state and local officials were advised of nothing that they could do to protect their systems from anything that a Russian interference would do. There's nothing. They said, we don't even know if the software. We know the software was hacked that goes into the machines, but we don't know which machines, and we don't know if our state, and we don't know, how do we, we don't have the cyber weapons they use. Nobody told us what we're looking for. Nobody told us any specific things that we should be doing. And therefore, it was a useless meeting. That's what the secretaries of state who were briefed, that's what the local election officials said on the TV. Sarah. She's just lying.
Last week, they met with state and private officials on how best to secure the election system from foreign interference.
Nope.
We're not the only targets of foreign interference, and we're working with our allies on the daily basis to make sure that we're following best practices. This has been a topic of conversation with multiple foreign heads of state. President Trump and the administration have made it clear that interference in our elections will have consequences.
Like what?
And we're going to continue to impose consequences in response to Russian cyber attacks. Just last week, we called out Russia by name. It was one of the first times that you've seen something like that take place. We're going to continue doing things like that.
The president hasn't criticized Vladimir Putin about this. He hasn't even called out Putin. He criticized Obama. He criticized the FBI.
Seriously.
He didn't even criticize Vladimir Putin.
He has been tougher on Russia in the first year than Obama was in 8 years combined. He's imposed sanctions. He's taken away property. He's rebuilt their military. He has done a number of things to put pressure on Russia and to be tough on Russia. Just last week, there was an incident that will be reported in the coming days in another way that this president was tough on Russia.
In the coming days, you'll find out that the president did a thing to be tough on Russia. You know, this idea that Trump has been tough on Russia has been debunked by every single fact checker in the United States. It's been debunked by PolitiFact. It's been debunked by Snopes. It's been debunked by just anybody, everybody. I mean, he says there is no. He keeps on denying that anything happened. I mean, that's the first thing.
Every time Russia's brought up, they say, "Oh, Trump, What do I have to do with it? I have nothing to do with Russia, folks, okay?
During the election?
No, nobody that I know of.
So you're not aware of any context during the course of the election?
How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. Yeah, I know you have to get up and ask a question, so important. Russia is a ruse. I have nothing to do with Russia. Haven't made a phone call to Russia in years. Don't speak to people from Russia. Not that I wouldn't, I just have nobody to speak to. There is no collusion between me and my campaign and the Russians. But the entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion between certainly myself and my campaign, but I can always speak for myself and the Russians, zero. There has been no obstruction. There has been no collusion. There has been leaking by Comey, but there's been no collusion, no obstruction, and virtually everybody agrees to that. There has been absolutely no collusion. It's been stated that they have no collusion. They ought to get to the end of it because I think the American public is sick of it. Uranium is a big subject. I think that's your Russia story. That's your real Russia story, not a story where they talk about collusion and there was none. There is no collusion, I can tell you that. They have found no collusion. But there's zero collusion, and everybody knows it.
Nobody knows it. Everybody believes that there was collusion, and collusion is the least of our worries. What it is a cover-up and an obstruction of justice for the American people. And Sarah Sanders actually went on today to say in that press briefing, this is the first press briefing that the White House has had since these kids were killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, right down the road here in Parkland, Florida, and since the indictment of the 13 Russian individuals and 3 Russian companies. And she went on to say that Trump has been tougher on Russia and that he has imposed sanctions on Russia and that he has taken these 3 Russian, what do you call it? You know, those compounds, those 3 Russian that he has taken them or something. That's just not true. I mean, this is unbelievable to me. This is crazy. Okay. The claims that she made today, it's so unbelievable to see the amount of lying that they are willing to do. Because the Russian compounds were seized by Barack Obama. You know, in September of 2016, 2 months before the election, in September of 2016, 2 months before our election, top intelligence leaders briefed Republican and Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill about what Russia was doing to influence and interfere in our election. They begged for Congress to do something. Okay, they begged for Congress to take action or to send a message to Russia to cease and desist. And Mitch McConnell was skeptical about the intelligence. He said he didn't believe the intelligence. Donald Trump said he didn't believe the intelligence. The GOP leaders in the House said they didn't believe the news accounts. They didn't believe the intelligence that Russia was, interfering or was attacking. And the Democrats were very, very upset, especially Adam Schiff and Dianne Feinstein. They were really, really upset. They wanted the White House, the Obama administration, to push back harder, and they couldn't without Congress taking some action, and Congress refused. And then in October, the Obama administration made a public comment about Russia taking active measures and told everybody that the intelligence officials had signed off on a report that said that was true. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence issued a declassified report that we all got to see, and it went even further. And then Obama, after he got the report, sanctioned 4 Russian individuals, 5 Russian groups for interfering in the election, closed the Russian compounds, the one in Maryland, the one in New York, on Long Island, and ejected 35 Russian diplomats. Donald Trump got a bill that was signed by a veto-proof majority that he signed to impose further sanctions, and he said he wouldn't enforce it because the existence of the law was a deterrent enough. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.